What's up guys, it's Skill Up here with another Division video. I hope you guys are all well. Weekend ahead, looking forward to it. It's Saturday morning here in Australia, which means it's time to do my weekly Should I Buy It videos. These are videos I do every week that look at what's available at the vendors. Should you buy it? And if you do buy it, how should you mod it to get the most out of it? As I said, I do these every single week, so if you like this sort of content, drop a like on the video and don't forget to subscribe. And with that, let's kick on. So the very first thing that we see at the base of operations vendor is the Historian. Now, I've already done a review on the Historian. That appears every single week. If you're interested in that review, I'll link that in the comments below. But long story short, don't buy the Historian. It is not a good marksman rifle. Next up, we have the Officer's M9A1, which is a pistol. It's got two talents on it. It's got Expert and Restored. Now, Restored, killing a target with this weapon removes all negative status effects. I really don't like this talent at all. It's highly situational. First of all, you do need to get the killing blow on the target for it to proc. So if you're in a group setting and someone else happens to fire that last bullet that finishes off the target, you won't get the benefit. And of course, secondly, you actually need to have a status effect on you in order to be able to, you know, get benefit out of this. And certain status effects, like say for instance being on fire, stop you from using your weapon. So this really, you know, sees, as I said, very situational use at best. I wouldn't recommend purchasing this sidearm. Next up, we have the military Srs A1, which is a marksman rifle. Now, it's a really sad state of affairs for this category of marksman rifle. The fact is, the M44 has magnificent per bullet damage, but it's really slow to fire, but it's still a very viable weapon, particularly in PvP. And then you've got the M1A, which is just a monstrously good weapon, so long as you A, know how to use it, B, mod it correctly, and C, if it has Capable on it. Now, Capable is the talent that has replaced Balanced. It gives you this really small reticle that kind of stays really small, allowing you to fire that weapon at an incredible rate of fire. These weapon types, the military Srs A1 as an example, they sort of exist in between the two. Their per bullet damage is actually really poor, and their rate of fire is not that exciting either. And you can't sort of like, if you do get something like Capable on it to keep your reticle really slow, there's still so much recoil on the weapon that it still becomes unmanageable, right? Whereas the M1A actually has some really excellent recoil, so you can control it in a very precise fashion. So from that perspective, this weapon type is not in a good place, and I wouldn't recommend it just for that reason alone. Even if the talents were fantastic, I still would not recommend this weapon. But let's look at the talents anyway. In fact, before we do that though, let's look at the headshot damage, which is only 146%. The fact of the matter is, yeah, that's really not that much. You should be shooting for 160% generally speaking with a marksman rifle, so this is a pretty disappointing amount there. On the talents, there are 3 talents. There's Swift. Swift is actually a really poor talent, and the reason it's poor is because it's percentage based. The Srs A1 will have a reload time of about 3 seconds, and if I knock 13% off that, I'm really only knocking off, you know, just over 0.3 of a second off a reload time. Now, you're not going to feel that at all. It's going to be completely invisible to you and make no difference whatsoever. So not a great talent on any weapon, to be honest with you, even on an LMG where the weapon reload time is somewhere in the vicinity of 5.5 seconds. Next up, we have Ferocious. Ferocious is a really fantastic top tier talent, but you need to be aware of the stat requirement on it, because it can be really hard to hit all 3 of them at this 204 gear score level. You need 2,000 in each stat. If you can hit that, fantastic. Ferocious is just one of the best talents, hands down. But if you're not able to hit that, or you're going for a different build that's investing in sort of one stat more than the other, then you will struggle to hit that requirement, so be aware of that. And finally, Harmful. Each hit has a 13% chance to apply the bleed status effect to the target. This is actually quite good, to be honest with you, especially on this marksman rifle. It's not bad. This has got a fairly decent rate of fire, so if you've got, say, someone fleeing from you in the Darkzone, you can kind of whip this thing out, you know, shoot a few rounds off trying to proc that bleed, and hopefully stop them from getting too far away. But the fact is, I wouldn't use this in the Darkzone at all. I wouldn't use this in PvP. In fact, I wouldn't use this weapon anywhere. It's not a good purchase, so I'd say on this one, steer clear. Finally, we have this AUG, which is only a level 182 weapon, but I wanted to show it to you guys because, you know, obviously it's still quite a compelling or interesting buy at that level, given that it's actually quite cheap. So the first thing I would point out is that its base damage is actually a little bit on the low side. you can see my 182 AUG here, which has 8915 per bullet damage as compared to this one, which has got 8184. Now these numbers that you see here will be different for you because we have different firearms, right? This number here is always dependent upon that. I get that question every week, so I wanted to make that super clear. But the point I'm making is that you can tell that this is a little bit on the low side, so have that expectation walking in. In terms of the talent, we have deadly. Critical hit damage is increased by 26%. This is actually one of, or probably the best talent you can get on an SMG because they have a lot of base crit baked into them, and getting extra critical hit damage works really well on an SMG. So it's fantastic weapon talent to have. Another really good one to have is responsive, which is the second talent. Damage is increased by 13% when closer than 10 meters to the target. You are generally going to be using your SMG up pretty close because they've got fairly short range, optimal range. So this is again really strong talent. It doesn't show up in your DPS sheet. Your number here doesn't go up when you have this talent active, but it does work and it's very, very good. So don't miss out on that one. And finally, Swift. I've already spoken about why Swift is not great. It's just, especially on an AUG, the AUG has like a 2.3 second reload time from memory, really quick. So you're going to get almost nothing out of this talent at all. You can pretty much ignore this one. But overall, if you don't already have an AUG, then, and you've got a spare 200 Phoenix credits lying around, which I'm sure all of us do now because Phoenix credits are very easy to acquire, then I would check it out. It's not a bad weapon by any point, but it's low base damage, and the Swift talent make it less than, certainly less than God roll status. At Darkzone 4, we actually have some interesting options. So first of all, we have the Police T821, which is an SMG. In terms of the talents, it's got Dominant. Every kill performed while your signature skill is active reduces the cooldown of your other skills by 8%. Not a fantastic talent, given that you're generally not going to have huge uptime on your signature skill. Self-Preserved is a really, really fantastic talent on an SMG. It's one of the best you can get because SMGs are made for crit. And when you crit a lot, you heal a lot. And particularly at the moment, given how much damage stuff is dealing in the Darkzone, given how much health it has, it's a really top tier talent to have. So not too bad. And then finally we have Adept. Using a skill increases your critical hit chance by 8% for 5 seconds. Probably not one of the better options on an SMG, given that you are generally going to be running a lot of crit already. And of course we sort of get diminishing returns if we start reaching the crit cap, which very often happens with an SMG, especially if you're running things like Savage Gloves or you're running a skill power build that maxes out pulse, crit chance, and all those things. But look, it's still nice to have, obviously. The only problem with it is it only lasts for 5 seconds, which is a very short span of time. So would I get this one? It's okay. I mean, Dominant's a bit of a letdown. Self-Preserved, not too bad. And Adept, as I said, it's quite situational depending on whether or not you've got the right conditions to make sure you're getting full use out of it. I generally would probably not get this one. The T821 base damage is generally pretty low. You're really better off going with a Vector for PvP or an AUG for PvE content. They're generally more effective weapons, so I'd probably give this one a pass. Next up though, we have this bad boy, custom M870 MCS Shotgun. Now this is a 163, and a lot of people are going to look at this and think 163 is trash, I'm not going to buy this thing. They would be so mistaken, okay? Let me show you my 204 shotgun, okay? You'll see that there's per bullet damage a difference of only 2k. Now the way it works with shotguns is that they actually fire 8 pellets, and then you add up that damage. And so in total, what this is saying is that when I fire and all of the pellets connect, I will deal 60k with this and 62k with this. It's a very small difference, despite the fact that there is obviously a huge difference in item level between these two weapons, okay? So that's the first thing. Don't write it off just on the basis of its level, because the damage can still be quite competitive depending on the role of your other shotguns. Next up, we have Deadly. Critical hit damage is increased by 25%. Now, this is generally not that great on a shotgun because you're not running a lot of crit. However, if you do mod it for crit, and then you utilize this talent here, which is Adept, using a skill increases your critical hit chance by 7.5% for 5 seconds. Now we're talking, right? If you use Pulse, which gives you like 30 to 40% crit at a sort of a basic level, unless you're running a skill power build, in which case it gives you tons more than that. If you got that, You use that to sort of buff your crit chance. You're getting a further 7.5% crit from this talent. You're basically guaranteed to just like max crit whatever you hit, and that extra crit hit damage is going to become really, really useful at that point. So that's great. The final talent is responsive. Damage is increased by 12.5% when you are closer than 10 meters to the target. You are always using a shotgun closer than 10 meters to the target. So this is an immediate 12.5% damage increase on this weapon. Really fantastic. Buy this shotgun if you don't have a good shotgun, and even if you do have a good shotgun, probably buy it anyway, because there's a good chance it's going to be a very competitive option for you, given these talents, and given, you know, if you're running a pulse build, which a lot of people are, it's just awesome. So really, do buy it. I will be buying it. And yeah, now we've got two options here in terms of the 204 level weapons. The first up is a first wave vector. It's a 45 ACP. Look, dominant. We've already spoken about that. Not a fantastic talent, so I'll skip over that one. Competent. Weapon damage is increased by 13.5% for 10 seconds after using a skill. If you are running a build that is prioritizing a constant skill usage, like I kind of run that kind of build, it's pretty good, but you do need to be aware of the requirements. It requires 2,000 electronics. A lot of people don't go that high. Even if they are running a skill power build, they'll typically get their skill power from their mask and their backpack. They'll get bonus skill power rather than getting electronics. So be aware of that requirement. It is a bit tricky to hit that one. And the final one is unforgiving. Missing health segments increase your damage up to 23% when you're missing 2 segments. Can be quite good, especially at the moment in the Darkzone, given how much damage we're taking. We're constantly dipping quite low. It can really help us out in those critical moments, but it is situational. We generally want to be avoiding taking damage rather than aiming to benefit from it. That's it. So look, I probably would recommend giving this weapon a pass, to be honest with you. You can craft a 182 vector from the base of operations and just get better talents on it, which will equate to more damage in total than what these talents will provide you. So I don't think this is worth a purchase. Finally, we have the Srs A1, which is another marksman rifle, very similar to what I've spoken about earlier in that it's a bolt action rifle. Its per bullet damage is not as good as an M44, so it's not great from that perspective. And then in terms of the talents, we've got Ferocious, which we've already spoken about today. Great talent to have, but very high requirements to hit, so be aware of that. We've got Stable. This is actually not needed on a bolt action marksman rifle. Bolt actions, you have so much time in between each bullet to fire that it's just a bit of a waste to have this, so it's not useful to you. And finally, we have Skilled, which is headshot kills with this weapon increase your signature skill resources by 11.5%. This can be absolutely spectacular, particularly in the Darkzone, where you'd like to have a lot of uptime on your signature skill, you know, whether that's the sort of the bloodlust, as I call it, like extra damage, or the survival link, which everyone uses in PvP. Really great. The fact is, if you kill 10 targets with this, you will have your signature skill back up, and we all know killing 10 targets in the Darkzone really doesn't take that long at all. So yeah, look, overall though, it's not a great weapon. You'd want to be going for a marksman rifle that has, you know, more base headshot damage. You'd want something with brutal, deadly, you know, fierce. You'd want that Ferocious to be down in the bottom slot here. Stable, as I said, is completely wasted. Overall, it's not great, and I'd really recommend going for a custom M44 rather than going for this bad boy. Now, in terms of the blueprints, we've got a custom M870, which I would absolutely recommend picking up. If you are into shotguns, then this is one of the best ones you can craft. So pick it up if you like it. And there's also the M9A1, which is a pistol. If you'd like to spend 215,000 Darkzone credits on buying the pistol thing, go for it. But obviously, I think it's a bit of a low priority. Pistols are a bit of a nice to have rather than a game changer. So that's it, guys. That's the should I buy it for the week. As I said, if you like this video, please drop a like, as it does help me out in a big way. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button now. Just to note that next week's should I buy it will be late. I might not even get a chance to do it, actually, the truth is, because I'm actually going to E3. Ubisoft have invited me to attend E3 this year, so I'll be there. I'll be hanging out with the Division developers, asking them tons of questions covering the upcoming expansion. So for that reason, this video might be late or may not come at all. I'll update that on my Twitter, so be sure to follow me on that as well. Thank you guys for watching. Take good care, and I'll see you in the Darkzone. Bye-bye.